This thing on? Mic check. I just want to make sure y'all can hear me clearly. Yeah. Should you practice art? Or should art be your practice? I had a question, so I asked it. Not to anyone specifically, but to my inner God, you know? The one that's gonna be a master. The one that's more than a rapper. The one that's an educator. The one that seeks enlightenment. He travels with concepts. He's got the mindset expansive. He understands that his time combined with travel and concepts makes his mind convex. Sort of like when you look at a brain scan.
Reggie here, and I want to welcome you to another one of my live streams. This is Comics Today, a show that we do on Wednesday to celebrate the best day of the week, that being New Comic Book Day. And as part of this show, I typically have a guest or two on to help me to make sense of something that is happening in the world of comics and collectibles. And I will tell you that there is a lot that we are going to attempt to get to during the show. We are going to talk about selling comics to take care of one's family. We're going to talk about comic book preservation, because that's been a topic that I've been on as of late. Comic book preservation, protection, all of that kind of stuff. We're going to give you guys a little bit of an update on some of the videos that I've released as of late. We're going to talk about cosplay. I have never actually had a cosplayer live on the show before, so we're going to talk about that. And then I think we're also going to get to a couple of other topics. Above all else, we are going to have fun, and we are going to celebrate this New Comic Book Day. And in just a moment, I'm going to go to the chat here to see what it is that you guys may have picked up at your LCS. If you picked up some good stuff, if you want to shout out the LCS, if you want to shout out the books that you picked up, if you picked up something and you've had a chance to read it and it was good, and you want us to know about it, I want you to put that in the comments, because that helps us to prioritize what we put on the top of our reading stacks. It also sends the message that there are people that read comics still. There are good comics that are coming out that people should check out. And it gives people also a starting point when they come here to the channel, like, well, what should I read? Well, check out Comics Today, because people give a rundown of that stuff. I feel like I haven't done a live stream in like forever, so it is definitely good to be here with you guys. I think I maybe did one last week or maybe the week before. I can't remember. I lose track of time. A couple of cool books have shown up here at the house. I'm only going to show you guys a couple of what has shown up, but if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I recently got on a little bit of a kick with The Thing, with the show The Thing from, what was it, the 80s? There was a remake in 2011. And then there was the original back in, I think, 51 or something like that. I watched all three of those again. Technically, the one from 51 I had not seen before, so I watched that one. But the other two I've seen repeatedly. Watched those. And then I also took some time to read the comic. I read The Thing comic. I was not aware that there was a comic, so that was cool. And The Thing from Another World, issue number 1, super creepy cover right there. Some decent artwork in this, I will tell you that. Here's another one. This is issue 2. Issues 1 and 2, I picked up a couple of copies of it on the eBays. You guys know I don't do a whole lot of eBay, but as of late, I've been picking up some books here and there. I was in the middle of watching the show, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go buy this book right now. So I went out, bought a couple of copies, and they showed up here at the house. The other thing that showed up is this right here from my buddy Rat136. It is Keys and Grails, and this is him right here. He frequents Crush Comics in Castro Valley. Rat136 actually made those lapel pins for my comic book Swoldier boxes, and he's done these for years. All kinds of pins. The corner box art is basically what I'm talking about. He put together a comic, and this comic basically contains all of the lapel pins that he's created, and it is in the old school style of a comic. It has a newspaper print, it has ads from back in the day, it has all of the wonderful components that we know and love from comics. It was incredibly well done. I have 2 copies of it. I think I bought these. They showed up, but I think I bought these. I don't think he sent them to me, but definitely some cool books. I'm probably going to keep one and maybe give one away. We'll see how frisky I feel. as time goes on. But those were just a couple of the books that showed up here at the house that I wanted to show you guys. But let me go to the chat real quick. Let me go to the chat real quick and see what it is that you guys may have picked. Oh, Third Eye in Maryland. You can't go wrong. They carried Isolation issue 1 for a while, so that was pretty cool. Scroll. I'm coming in late on the chat, and I don't know what you guys are talking about. I had some ointment, some cream, something like that. I'm going to stay away from some of that stuff. Let me see. Who is that? Hydras. How you doing, brother? He says, today picked up Daredevil issue 12 and Spider-Man 2099 issue 1, just a raw copy for my LCS Nirvana. Shout out Nirvana, because Nirvana is actually my LCS, even though they're located in another state. I spoke to the owner of Nirvana via text the other day, and he's like, hey, I got your pull list ready to go. Here's a couple other books. Are you interested in these? Do you want me to send them? Yes. I went down the list. It was like, no, yes, yes, yes. Send all those to me. So I'm looking forward to when that shows up. So scrolling down, Mark is up in here. How you doing, brother? He picked up Magic Order issue number 4, Junk Rabbit 3, In Hell We Fight 1, and a lot of other books. Stone, Heart, Nocteric, some good stuff in there. That's what's up. My Canadian brother, who is also retired, he has a good life. He has a good life. Stay safe up there. All of my Canadians, stay safe. I know you guys are getting hit by some wildfires and poor air quality. So my thoughts are with you. As someone that lived in California and endured several wildfires, I know what you guys are going through. So definitely stay safe. Trav, how you doing, brother? Shazam 2, The Dark Knight of Steel, John Kent 4, and Yoda 8. One of the books that I have coming in from Nirvana is Steel, the new Steel series. I picked up a couple of those covers after I covered Steel recently. I think I did a couple of reels and Instagrams on Steel. So I decided to go ahead and pick it up. I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it and actually reading it. My man Joe says the sky in New York is yellow. I've seen all kinds of images today on social media of people in New York that are looking up at the sky, that are just like, this is crazy, because everything that's happening in Canada is actually blowing down to the States. And so stay safe. Everybody stay safe out there. Stay inside, run the AC, whatever it is you need to do. If you have asthma or, respiratory illnesses, definitely be careful. Randy Resnake, how you doing, brother? He said he picked up a couple of upgrades this week. ASM 252 9.6. Ooh, well done. Marvel Team Up 141 9.6. Both. Ooh, dirty. He is talking dirty in the comments. You saved the best for last, sir. You saved the newsstand for the very end. I was not expecting that. I wasn't. Those are both great black costume covers. I know exactly where mine are in the collection. So those are definitely cool books. Mine are not newsstands. So you definitely have an advantage there. Congrats on those pickups. I was telling people, I was putting out the videos, telling folks that prices have come down, that this is a good time to buy. And I have seen repeatedly people that have taken that advice and have jumped on really great deals right now, because they weren't waiting for the absolute bottom, as if you could ever actually spot it. You see the bottom in hindsight. And I'm always glad when people are taking some action. I didn't see that. He said, black suit goodness. That's what's up. Let me see. I'm scrolling down. The pastor is in the house. The pastor has been on fire. We appreciate our men of the cloth here. And there has been several pastors that have actually, I'm hoping you are an actual pastor. I see the cross and the name. But I've seen several pastors over the years that have chosen to follow the channel. So welcome to you, sir. I don't think I've seen you in a live stream, Michael, but I've seen you in the comments a lot over like the last month and a half or so. Shout out to Elbor. Be safe up there, no doubt. Shout out to We Have Issues. He is shouting out his LCS. I thought you were saying something else. There you go. Scrolling through, Grant's a good guy. Grant is a good guy, no doubt about it. What's funny is I was there and I walk into the shop, into Nirvana. I don't announce. I just walk in, And I hear, "Are you Reggie?" And I turned and it was Grant. And I'm like, "Yes, I'm Reggie." So we had a wonderful conversation. He toured me through the whole shop. I picked up some books, and then I had a chance to actually talk to his wife. He called his wife, who was, I think, at home. He called her on, I don't know, some app, and we ended up chatting for a few minutes. Wonderful people, happy to support them. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to have us become your LCS?" And I gave him a shot, and I've been very pleased thus far. Actually, just last week ended my relationship with mycomicshop.com in terms of them being my pull box provider, and now everything is going through Nirvana. Steve White, how you doing, brother? It's good to see you. Scrolling through some of the comments here, seeing what else you guys are talking about. Shout out to Pastime Comics in Asheville, North Carolina. The Drifter is doing that. I have been through Asheville several times, bro, and I have never been to that shop. I may have to make some magic happen. We see Tina's up in here. How you doing? Victor Perez, who's hyped for New York Comic Con? Tickets on sale Sunday. Let's go, he says, scrolling down through the comments. I may be at New York Comic Con. I may have a friend that will allow me to hang out with them at New York Comic Con. More to come. Starstream #1 from 1976 had the first comic book adaptation of Who Goes There. So what's funny, Gary B, the casual comic guy, that's, man, that name is long. Somebody actually sent me a photo of what had that in there, and I thought it was before that. Mark, didn't you do the research on this for me, and didn't we realize that it was like, what was it, 1953? It was Astounding Science Fiction Hellship by Arthur Burks. And I think that book came out in 1951. But correct me if I'm wrong on any of that, Mark. I know you looked it up for me after I sent you the image, after somebody sent it to me. So let's throw that up in the comment section so folks can have that good information. Deuces, boy, it is good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the live stream. And again, thanks to all those folks that are throwing up their comments in the comment section. As I alluded to at the top of the show, we have a ton of stuff that we are going to get to. We're going to talk about selling comics to cover family expenses. We're going to talk about comic preservation. We have a cosplayer coming up. I also just released a YouTube video that, if you guys haven't seen it, you may want to check out. It is a short video on what is going on the Twitters right now regarding Spider-Gwen. There is a lot that is breaking out on Twitter where people believe that Spider-Gwen is a trans person. And I go through the evidence, at least as far as I've heard it on Twitter. And if you haven't seen the video, check it out. I released it about an hour and a half ago. So check it out if you guys get a chance. With that said, we're going to make a little bit of a turn here, and we're going to have our first guest on. I believe that I was made aware of this video that captured my attention by the OG. I think Tina sent me a message while I was in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, "Hey, check this out." I watched it, and after watching it, I immediately sent a message to the guy, and I was like, "Hey, we need to get you on the show. I'm traveling right now, but when I get a moment, I want to have you on the show to talk about this." And so I'm gonna stop there. I'm gonna invite him on, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. I want to welcome to the show Luke Hydra Collectibles. How are you, brother?
I'm good, Reggie. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for reaching out.
You English people, the accents, it's always so pleasant. No matter what you say, I'm always like, "Oh, it's good to see you, brother." It is my pleasure to have you on. So you released a video 14 days ago or something like that, right? And I think the video was entitled, please correct me wrong, "I sold my comic book Grail." That's what I saw. I think that was the title of it. I immediately sent you a message. Talk to me about what happened, brother. What went down? What did you sell? Why did you sell it? What was the situation? Paint the picture for us.
Yeah, so like your good self, I am a Spider-Man collector, primarily ASM. And over the last 3 years, I've managed to get every single issue from issue 2 all the way through to present day, including all the tie-ins, all the point numbers, everything. So I was quite pleased with myself. I thought that's quite an achievement. Still a long way to go.
Dude, hold on. That's like a big understatement. He says, "I'm quite pleased with myself." You should be ecstatic. Okay.
It's not an easy book to find this side of the pond, let alone anywhere else. So I was very happy, but I bought at the right time. This was way before all of the hype that we had in like 2020, etc. I had just started just before. Actually, the week after we sadly lost Stan Lee. That's what kind of kickstarted me back into the hobby and got me back into Spider-Man books. So like I say, I had all of these books. And I was quite proud of myself, thinking I only had issue 1 and obviously Amazing Fantasy still left to go. Didn't know quite when I was going to get there, but I was happy nonetheless. But then, life turns around and gives you a little kick. And unfortunately, I had to let one of these books go. And it wasn't an easy decision. Primarily, I had always thought that maybe I would sell one of the later issues, maybe even a Spider-Man 300 or a much later key, as it were.
Yeah.
But then the money wouldn't be there right away. It wouldn't be that large sum, and that's what I needed at that given time. And it just so happened that the good old folks, as you can call them, over at eBay, they had a 70% off on their fees if I had sold it on that particular weekend. So
check that out.
Little bit of a brash decision. I don't know if it was necessarily the right thing to do, but I know a lot of people would disagree. I personally think it was the right thing to do, or else I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, I made the decision to sell this key book, and that key book, of course, being the first appearance of the Green Goblin, issue number 14. So yeah, tough times. So now I'm two books behind.
That's a big book. There's no doubt about it. But I think you painted the picture of like why you decided to sell it, right? I mean, it was because a bill came in for your family, and it was sell a book or keep the book and not pay the bill, which that doesn't necessarily work, right? But is there a reason why you chose ASM 14? Was it purely about the dollar amount, or what was the thought behind that book specifically?
So a lot of my books are low to mid grade, with the average for all my Silver and Bronze Age books probably being between a grade 5 to maybe a 7.5. This one happened to be a 5.5, so it's quite a reasonable book. It's quite a well-off book for its age. But my reason for selling that book in particular, not only was it because of that was literally the perfect amount, it was exactly what I needed, barring a couple of hundred here or there that I was able to put in my pocket still. It was exactly what I needed when I looked up the pricing. But there was some form of logic behind it, and I don't know if you or your viewers might agree or disagree with this. We've had plenty of Spider-Man movies, and if you actually add it all up, the Green Goblin has been featured and has been a primary villain in all 3 different iterations of Spider-Man, whether it be the Tobey Maguire, the Andrew Garfield, even though it wasn't technically Norman Osborn, it was Harry, and then, of course, with Tom Holland. So I kind of felt like maybe that book is done.
Yep.
And, I might still have to pay the same as what I sold it for in order to get it back.
Maybe.
But it won't necessarily go up any higher. I do believe that specific book has peaked. So again, with these other books, thinking about, well, what other books could I sell? Should I sell later ones? Those characters haven't been utilized yet. So that was my thought process. Again, whether I'm right or wrong, that remains to be seen.
But you gave some thought to it. Like there was a rationale behind it. Like I didn't know how you arrived at that book, but I actually agree with the logic. I always tell people, if you take a moment to think about the situation and you arrive at a decision after giving it some thought, you're probably going to arrive at a better decision than if you just didn't think and just made a decision, right? So the logic behind it actually makes sense. It makes sense. You could pick that book up later for less money based upon people's attention being focused on other books that are now going to be coming up in live action, this, that, or the other. I think it actually makes sense. And the fact that you were able to time it with a 75% fee discount with eBay, like what's the chances of that happening? You know what I'm saying?
So, I mean, that would have cost me like £300, over $300, because it's quite close nowadays. but yeah, I ended up paying about $50 in fees instead of the 300. So yeah, it was quids in.
There you go.
I'm not going to say it was an easy decision. It certainly wasn't, but it was the right decision because the last thing that my family needs is to be in debt.
Did you talk to the wife about it? And I mean, there's no wrong answer here, right? Did the bill come in and you, as the guy that is like, I'm going to solve this, right? I got this covered. Or was there like a discussion? Like, how did that go down with the wife and just in general?
So my personal life is very unique. I'm very lucky. And I say that because I've had a fantastic career my entire life. But 4 years ago, I opted to pack that all in and become a full-time stay-at-home dad for my two children. And I've never looked back. I absolutely love it. But what that does mean is that my wife, with her career, basically funds all of the bills. She
Yep.
pays our mortgage, she pays all of our bills. Everything is handled from there, which means that if there's any additional money, any spending money, that falls to me. And so I've always stood there and said, I will provide, I will do it. If need be, you're doing all this. If I have to even go back to work, that's fine too.
Yep.
I will make this happen. Now, sure enough, this bill was a lot bigger than we could have anticipated. It was actually car trouble. And it was a lot of money. It was the drive shaft for the car. $2,000 right away, just on replacement parts and everything else. And we can't be without the car. We've got two young kids, got to get places, got to go to work and everything else. So it had to be paid, had to happen. So I did it, and I've always said that I can get this stuff back. I've always said that they're not some, I don't buy comics as investments, but they are somewhat assets.
Yeah.
And if you have those assets at hand, then you might as well use them. And like I say, I did give some thought into which books I was going to sell.
Right.
I had thought, should I sell multiple items? Because it's not just comics that I have. There's a lot of all different collectibles that I own. But I knew that this time frame was limited. I needed to pay the bill. The car was already in the shop. I didn't really want to put it on a credit card, even though I could have.
Yep.
And yeah, that 70% fee, off of eBay, that was kind of that solidified the deal. Do you know what I mean? That made the choice a lot easier to go with. So yeah, it just seemed like the right thing to do. And that's kind of something that it was installed upon me by my father. My dad always done the right thing. He always put food on the table. The amount of times my dad, he used to work in the antiques industry, and the amount of times he would watch television shows such as the Antiques Roadshow or American Pickers or anything like that, and he would point at things and go, I had one of those, or I had several of those, but I sold it to put food on the table. So we talk about Spider-Man being a hero. My dad's my hero, and he taught me these things, which kind of set my mindset. That's how I look at life. And if bills need to be paid, then my toys can wait.
So for those folks that are coming in a little late, I'm sitting here talking with Luke Hydra Collectibles across the pond. And he recently released a video entitled, I Sold My Comic Book Grail. And he did it in order to provide for his family. And honestly, man, I didn't know how you were going to respond to the questions that I asked. I'm enjoying the responses, I'll be honest with you, because I personally tell my children all the time, my job is to protect and provide for them. That is my job. As a father, I put food on the table. I protect my family. I make sacrifices so that they don't have to make sacrifices, right? If I have to go without, I go without so that they can have what they need, right? To me, that's what a father does. Whether you are a stay-at-home dad or not, it matters not. You make the sacrifices for your family, right? So I appreciate the story there. One of the things that kind of struck me in watching the video is that you said something like, I view my collection as a form of a nest egg, right? You don't view it as an investment, but you view it as an asset that you can tap into should you need to tap into it. That was basically what I heard. This also isn't the first time that you've actually tapped that asset, right? I mean, you've gone back to the well a couple of times, right? Do you want to talk about the fact that, this isn't the first, second, third, fourth time that you've done this, right? Paint that picture for us, brother.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a collector through and through, you know, to the stage where it's not even necessarily about the items that I collect. It's just it's a part of me. It's an instinctual part, you know, dating back to like caveman times, you know, the hunters and the gatherers. I have this desire, this need.
Hold on, no. You just can't. Hunters and gatherers didn't collect statues in comic books, brother. Come on now.
It's about acquiring assets to show to potential mates. I have worth.
No. All right. Go ahead, tell your story.
But it's just something that's kind of like ingrained with me. It's something that I have to do. And even getting this close to completing my Spider-Man run, where I only had the one book left, I was already getting that itch, you know, that need to hunt for something else. And I always wondered what that something else would be, because, you know, the ASM collection was pretty expensive. You know, granted, I did come in at the right time, but it's still some big money being spent. So, you know, ideally you want to collect bottle caps or something cheap, and you still get that little thrill of finding them. But, you know, I was starting to worry about what that was. But with that in mind, it's the collecting part of it that I love the most. And as much as I love Spider-Man and ASM, I know I'm going to get this stuff back. You know, I know that it's temporary. If I let this go for a few months, maybe a few years, maybe even a decade, I'm still going to get it back. Even if the day comes where I get some money together and I go, right, now I'm going to go out and buy all three of the ones that I want, the AF-15, the ASM-1, and the issue number 14. I'll buy them all at the same time. I'm not in a rush to do this. You know, I was very lucky I'd done it all in 3 years. I don't know how I'd done it in 3 years, especially when I haven't been working. That's just from wheeling and dealing and doing, you know.
Hustling, brother.
Yeah, I used to go into comic book shops and buy various X-Men books, Thor books, anything that was in the MCU. Some people might call me a flipper for that, but you know, I was buying the stuff before I saw it happening, and I was just able to sell all those at the right time to buy the Spider-Man books that I wanted. So within that 3-year period, I managed to do what I wanted to set out to do. But yeah, it all comes down to the simple fact of, I know this isn't the end. You know, it can be, don't get me wrong, this can be a slippery slope. You sell one, you go, oh, I'll sell another, I'll sell another, I'll sell another. Fortunately for me, that's not the case. You know, my wife and I sat down. She knew I was going to sell this one book. We said that was all we were going to do. The money has now sorted itself out. Everything's back to normal. Like I said, I managed to pocket a little bit of the change myself. Bought a couple more comics, but that's neither here nor there. But you know, it's just one of life's things. And if I am ever in this situation again, especially if it was the car or the mortgage, you know, if it's something like that, then of course I'm going to sell these books, and it's not game over. I will start again. I will just pick myself up, go off to the conventions and the stores and go hunting again. I'm not even bothered about getting the same grade back. You know, I sold a 5.5. For me, it's about the ownership of the book and ticking it off. I can always upgrade again later. Like it's not even a case of that.
I absolutely love what you're talking about, brother. Again, I think that we always should be in a position to be able to make some sacrifices. We should always be evaluating like what's really important in life. And I think what's really important is family, right? It is doing the right thing for one's family versus holding on to some paper, right? And I would say if I ever found myself in that situation, I would like to believe that I would make the exact same decision that you've made. And I definitely applaud you for that. It was honestly the right call. My guess is that you have a very good relationship with the wife as well. The ability to sacrifice something that actually matters to you for your family, that tends to go over well with one significant other. You know what I'm saying? Especially when she's doing what she's doing, your willingness to contribute, I would imagine that goes over incredibly well. Is it too soon for me to, let me back up. So you made a comment about being considered a flipper. I think that term, I personally feel like people talk negatively about flippers because they view them as an outside influence. I believe that there is a component of that, but there are also those of us that choose to make the hobby work for us. And we buy comics at the right time. We sell them at the right time in order to reinvest those funds back into the hobby. And there is no one that should listen to this that heard you say what you said that should think negatively with that approach that you take, because your passion as a collector is apparent, and that shouldn't be looked down upon. I I did the same thing in order to get a lot of the books that I have in this room. And I dare anyone to call me not a collector because I flipped my way to some books. It's what you have to do. Unless you are incredibly wealthy or have a sugar mama, right? You have to hustle. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think there's two ways, obviously, looking at it. So for one, I don't go into my local comic book shop and buy every book that's on the shelf when it's the new comic book day. You know,
Yep.
I don't go and do that. What this actually was back when I heard the rumors that Disney were potentially going to buy Fox,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in my local comic book shop asking for Spider-Man books, which they didn't have, but they did have a load of X-Men, Fantastic Four, and everything else. So hearing these rumors that Disney might be purchasing it, I was like, okay, I know enough. You know, I used to watch the old 94, 95 cartoon. I know who these characters are. I'm going to go rooting through these boxes. And like I say, this is 2018, 2019. The hype hadn't kicked off yet. I was picking these books up dirt cheap, and I mean dirt cheap. I was buying stacks of them straight out of the bins. And yeah, I just kept them aside, knowing that I couldn't get Spider-Man books from my local store. I knew that I could trade these in and swap them elsewhere.
Just smart.
And it was just a gradual process. You know,
Just smart. Sorry. It's just a smart approach, you know. So
I
again,
totally understand if there's a new book on the shelf and you go in and you buy all 10 of them.
that's different.
I get that.
That's
I
different.
wouldn't
right?
do that.
Anytime money is involved, you will have some bad actors, but simply saying anyone that flips comics is a bad person, absolutely not. Anybody that takes all the books off a shelf, that's a bad person. But a person that buys books smartly and sells books smartly in order to reinvest back into the hobby, that's called a collector. That's a good person. That's a smart person, right? So again, brother, I applaud you for what you've been able to accomplish. The sacrifices that you've made for your family, I applaud that. And my fingers are crossed, brother, that you're going to be able to eventually get that ASM 14 back, get ASM 1, and get that amazing Fantasy 15. Just all good books, brother. And I'm a firm believer that good things happen to good people. And I have nothing but positive thoughts for you, brother. Where can people get a hold of you on social media, Luke? Do you want to go ahead and shout out your social media handles?
Yeah, so you can find me under Hydra Collectibles here on YouTube, or you can find me under Hydra Collectibles again over on Instagram. I did have a Twitter and a Facebook page, but I don't really use those. So those are the two main places that you can find me. Check those out.
What's funny, brother, is when you said Hydra Collectibles, I heard the roar in my head. I literally heard the roar and I was like, yep, I know. Anyway, Luke, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you for staying up a little bit late to be able to join us and for sharing your story. I think we are all the better for it. So have a good night, brother.
Thank you. Take care.
Hydra Collectibles, my buddy Luke. I think that's the second time that Luke has been on the show. Again, when I saw that video on YouTube, I was compelled. I was compelled to send him a message to have him to come on because, again, a man making a sacrifice for his family is something that I can always applaud. And selling ASM 14, such a great book and a great copy of it, that's a sacrifice. That's a sacrifice, but it was a worthwhile sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? So again, I applaud him for that. There are several other things that we are going to get to over the course of this show, but I do want to move into my next guest. I realized recently that I had never had a cosplayer on the show. And I've actually spoken to a lot of cosplayers online, DMs back and forth, trying to understand, what it is that they do and why they do what they do. But I never invited one on the show. And so I wanted to take that opportunity or this opportunity to actually correct that. And I wanted to invite my next guest on, and we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about various things, including cosplay. So I want to welcome to the show, Stephanie. It is good to see you. How are things? Are you on mute? Hey, you there? Uh-oh. We may be having some technical problems. Let's pull that off and give her a second to get things together. We'll see whether that resolves itself. Let me see. Let me go to the chat real quick. Canada is good. Detroit sends smog into Canada for years, and we can deal with the smoke for a week or two, says Matt Woods. We can't ever say anything bad about Detroit because that is where I'm from. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Steph. Let's try to bring her back. Let's try to one more time. It looks like you are on mute. You are muted, and I cannot unmute you. You have to go into your settings to see if you can do it. And I can't do it from my side. Down in the bottom. Let's pull off one more time. Let me see. I cannot unmute her from my side. You may have to go out. Can't unmute your guests because they have muted themselves. Yep. So you got to unmute yourself, and then I will pull you back in. Oh, there we go. So we do now have confirmation. We do now have confirmation that you are actually a pastor. There we go. The good stuff, brother. I didn't want to just assume, and I made a very big assumption when I did that. So I'm glad that that proved to be true. Let me scroll down here real quick. Let me see. Let me see what else you guys are talking about. Everyone, stop talking. Doug is back, says Mark. Scrolling through the comments here. I just completed my Secret Wars with issue number 8, the first blood. Congrats to you, brother. Congrats to you, EE Dub. That is definitely a big accomplishment. I think we are all set now. So I'm actually going to bring Stephanie back on camera. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Anytime we have live streams, there is the possibility for technical glitches to happen, but that is okay. We are on track. How are you doing? Steph, how you doing? Uh-oh. We might be having another glitch. We may be having another glitch. Let me pull her off. I could hear her for a hot second, and then all of a sudden, I don't think that she could actually hear me. Scrolling down, Blu-ray. Tina collects blue wrenches. She collects blue wrenches. She is a legend in the comic book community, doesn't actually go on camera, but is a trustworthy person. And there are a lot of folks that actually know her. So let me go back. Do you want to try it one more time, Steph? I'm going to try it one more time. Go ahead and say something. Let's see if we can hear you. Nope. Nope. Yep, you may have to go back out and come back in. All right, let me go on to another topic, and then I will come back to that. So we'll let her bounce back out, and hopefully that resolves itself when she comes back in. I recently did a video, well, technically a series of videos in which I was talking about ways to protect comics. We spoke a little bit about UV protection. We talked about physical protection. We spoke a little bit in a video about chemical protection as well. And I basically did a video talking about the micro chamber paper that CGC puts in some of its older books. And so the question was, does CGC still put the micro chamber paper in the older books? Yes, indeed they do. And then some people asked some questions around, well, are there other comic book grading companies that use micro chamber paper? And so what I decided to do is to reach out to some of the other companies to inquire. I didn't believe that they did, but I wanted to make sure that I was able to provide people with accurate information. So I reached out to EGS, Tony Trebetta, and Tony confirmed for me that EGS does not actually use micro chamber paper. And so he and I had a little bit of a back and forth. He confirmed that he didn't. So I wanted to make sure that I passed that on to people. And so I did have a conversation with the folks at CBCS because I didn't know, but I figured that they did not. They sent me back a very robust response that basically concluded that they did not use the micro chamber paper, and they provided me with the rationale behind it. And I want to read a little bit of an excerpt from this. They say, comics have been stored in collections for over 100 years now. We know that extreme temperatures, sunlight, and moisture are not a friend to paper. Again, topics that I've covered in separate videos. Slabs, mylar, acid-free backing boards, microchamber paper, any of these things do help preserve the condition, but none of them can completely stop the aging of paper. That paper just breaks down. It is a natural thing. He says here, and again, I'm kind of skipping through a long email here. The best protection for your collection is a cool, dry, and yes, dark environment. The nicest pedigree collections that have surfaced over the years have this in common. He says, when it comes to our decision to not use microchamber paper, it was based purely on the materials we use. The inner wales are made of PETG, which is used by the Library of Congress to preserve paper. We chose not to add foreign materials inside of the comic itself, especially one that cannot be applied evenly across the entire surface of the book. Over the decade plus that microchamber paper has been used, there have been many questions about the effectiveness once the paper has absorbed all of the acids from the comic. Should it be changed? Should it not be changed? The fact that comics have been preserved for over a century without the use of microchamber paper, why add a variable that has no test of time? And again, this is just an excerpt of what I received from CBCS. This is not a critique of CBCS, EGS, or CGC. It is information that I am providing to you guys so that you can make informed decisions on how you want to protect and preserve your collection. All three of these companies, including PGX, all great companies that offer different services to the community for you to be able to access. Now we know that at least CGC uses microchamber paper for their reasons. EGS and CBCS do not for theirs. Neither here nor there in terms of one being better than the other. But again, wanted to pass that information on to you guys so that you can make informed decisions. All right. So, Steph, I see two of you now. You may need to bounce completely out of the browser, go completely out and then come back in through the link because that may help to resolve the issue that we are experiencing. With that said, I'm actually going to go on to my third guest. I'm going to go on to my third guest because we are ambitious in that we are going to have multiple guests on the show. I wanted to have my buddy on because, well, let me do this. Let me back up. Let me give you guys an update on isolation. There has been a lot of progress that has been made on isolation. Things have been a little slow because I've been traveling and I haven't been doing all of what it is that I should be doing, but we are making up ground. Just yesterday, Doug actually sent me a wonderful page from Chase that was just an incredible page. And I shared it on social media. He did as well. I shared it on Regie Collects on Instagram. I shared it on Swoldier Publishing, and Doug shared it as well. Shared just not even a page, a frame. And it was incredibly well done. It really was. Just today, I received an invoice from our letterer who is continuing to letter pages. We are getting closer and closer to having this book in a good place for us to release it in July, which was our original time frame for being able to release this thing. And over the course of May and even into the first part of June, we've been releasing various packages, making people aware that, hey, we've got some cool stuff here to raise money for Isolation issue number 4. And tonight we are going to announce a new package. And I wanted to welcome to the show this guy right here. No stranger to the show. Doug, it's good to see you, brother. Welcome back.
Good to see you, Reggie. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. I can see you, and I can see those wonderful pages that you have on the wall back there, Doug. I continue to be envious of you, Doug. I continue to be envious. It is good to see you, though, brother. How are things?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you are welcome, brother. So we have a new package. There's a couple of components to this package that we are going to talk about. The first component is a physical component. Talk about what this package is and talk about what the physical makeup of this package happens to be.
So we printed out 20 copies, and these are signed, inscribed, and numbered copies, so they're limited, of Chapter 1 of the draft novel manuscript of Isolation, which people who've heard us talk about Isolation for a long time and know some of the history might know that I started by writing a draft novel, but then pitched it to you as a comic series. So, yep. And in addition to that, the printout of the script not the script of the manuscript chapter that's signed in numbers. I also thought it'd be cool to go back and take some of my original handwritten notes of what was originally going to be the first scene, which didn't end up being the first scene, as well as my first kind of brief outline of the first scene of Chapter 1. So people could actually see the process of the writing. That's it.
So this is the manuscript, and I think the manuscript is about 16 pages. This is basically chapter 1 from the book of isolation that you've put together. And and then there's some bonus pages. I think there's like 4 bonus pages in the back. This thing is bound. It is signed, it is inscribed, and it is numbered 1 through 20. And you sent all these to me in some wonderful packaging that I opened up the other day. And jokingly, because if you guys follow me on Instagram, there's all kinds of just fun stuff that happens. Doug put together a monstrosity of a package, but he sent me a bunch of stuff and it survived. It made it here. It just didn't look pretty. And his wife made fun of him. I wasn't going to say anything. My wife commented when I was opening it. Your wife commented publicly on social media, and I was like, Pam, get after it. She went hard, brother.
She saw me packaging that up and was like, what are you doing? Like, what is the theory here? And it was all designed to really protect the original art. Like, I literally had metal grating in, and it worked. But while I was doing it, I realized there was extra room, and I was like, well, I could send this in a separate box, or I could just put this box in that and wrap it in bubble wrap. And it was a mess.
I was like, what did he send me? And I'm like, I didn't know how to open it. So I'm like opening it extremely carefully. But the logic of it was sound. Like Luke's logic for selling ASM 14. It's sound logic, right? It makes perfect. Like when I got it all done, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. It makes perfect sense. Filled up half my trash can, but it made perfect sense. So you sent me 20 of these manuscripts, and this one is dated June 23. They're all numbered. They are now listed on soldierpublishing.com. Already 2 copies have seen sold. I've actually seen them out of the corner of my eye. That they are already going. But the physical makeup of this package, which I think is package I, is just part of it. There is an additional bonus component to this. Can you talk a little bit about that bonus component?
Yes. So for a lot of different reasons, I thought it'd be cool to add something extra to this one. So what we're going to do is the 20 individuals who purchase the hard copy that you shared will be invited to a private live stream. It'll either be on Zoom or StreamYard or something. And we're going to do a Q&A about isolation. And part of it is I'll talk a little bit about the writing process and some of the evolution from original ideas to what made it into the comic book. But also, there are certain secrets of what is coming that I can't reveal. But there's also a lot of major things that are going to be happening as we move past issue 4. And I wanted to give people who supported the project an opportunity to get behind the curtain and get a glimpse of some of those things and know, like, hey, when's the visitor showing up? Hey, that thing there at the end of issue number 1, when are we going to see more of that? And those things are coming, and they're coming pretty soon. So, but that's going to be discussed in this live stream.
So the idea here is that 20 people have an opportunity to pick up the chapter 1 of the manuscript that you wrote, the long form book that was then converted into individual issues of a comic. So they pick up that, signed, numbered, inscribed by you. And then they also have an opportunity to participate in a live Q&A with you, where you're going to chat with them and reveal some secrets, talk about the writing process, how you went through it, how you did what you did, the magic. You're going to share with them the magic that is isolation. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're going to host this live stream. And I'm going to, when people buy the book, I'll be providing you with the email addresses that will give you the ability to reach out to these individuals via email to arrange the right time for the most amount of people to participate in this Q&A. Are we opening this up? I guess it's probably just going to be North America is my guess, right? In terms of shipping costs and the Q&A, I'm guessing.
Probably, yeah, the shipping. I don't think the live stream people could participate, but it might be 3 a.m, and that is one for them. One thing I did want to say is obviously like there's no way I'm going to be able to coordinate everyone's schedule. So what I'm going to try and do is pick a day and a time that seems reasonable. Like far in advance, like probably for later in July, and hopefully the majority of people can participate.
Yeah. Ideally, in my head, I feel like ideally, if we're able to get the issue out in the early part of July, that will give people an opportunity to read and maybe even reread issues 1 through 4. They get their manuscript, they show up to the call, and you guys just have a robust conversation about isolation. Doug, how many pages will we have completed, published pages, by the time the Isolation 4 is done? It's like over 100, right?
Oh yeah, it's like right around 115. And there's a deleted scene that if we were to do something with that, there's a couple of more pages. Actually, I don't know if we're talking about issue 5 script or not, but
go for it. You can talk about issue 5.
The issue 5 script, there is also a scene that I originally wrote that for space reasons decided to take out. So there are these scenes that, because of the complexity of the story and trying to be economical with our page count, there are times I'll take something out that might be fun for people to read, but isn't necessary for that time.
Yep. And so the benefit of you having that flexibility is that if at some point we do produce a collected work of some type, we can introduce those deleted scenes back into the book. Like I think issue 4, we pulled 3 pages, I think, out of issue 4. And there's a couple of pages you just alluded to in issue 5. Doug sent the script for issue 5 to me. I can't read that. I'm not ready for that. Like I need to stay focused on 4. And once we get in a good place with 4, where it's closer and closer to being released, I'm going to read 5 and provide feedback and thoughts like I always do. But you know me, I got to stay focused on that one thing. But I am really excited about people having an opportunity to pick up something that is both physical as well as an experience as well. That's a little different from the other packages that we've done. Most packages have been physical items that we've given people. So this package which is available on swoldierpublishing.com, is a little different, right? The package is available for, I think, $30 plus shipping, no cost for the Q&A. But again, Doug is looking at the end of July for being able to make that happen. Doug, is there anything that we haven't covered thus far? Do you want to talk about issue 4, maybe for those folks that haven't checked out issue 4, and then did I miss anything?
Yeah, let me touch on one thing about the package. I think if people have read issue number 1 of the comic and then they read, again, it's not a long manuscript chapter. It's, I think, 16 or 17 pages. What they're going to see is structurally a story that is very, very similar to the comic book. Issue number 1, the scene by scene, beat by beat, what happens is similar to the comic. What I think they'll be surprised at is how different a novel is written, because you don't have that visual in the comic book. And one of the things that I do differently in it is each scene, it's not like a first person narrative, but it's clearly written from the perspective of a different character. So you get some insight into characters, what they're thinking, what they're feeling. You learn a few names that we held back in the comic because wasn't necessary for the comic, but it sets some things up in the novel. So even if people choose to read it, I think in addition to those similarities, they're going to get something new out of that experience. So I think they'll like that.
I think what you wrote on here is many secrets.
Yeah.
is what you wrote. Many secrets is what he inscribed. But I
Yeah.
cut you off, Doug. What was your other point there? Your other thought?
No, I was going to switch to issue number 4,
Please.
and issue number 4 in many ways is the end of the beginning. It brings, if you've read the first few issues, they focus on some different characters that are introduced. Issue number 4 really starts to bring some of those characters together, get a little more into some of the complex relationships, as well as continue with the murders and some of the attacks that are now happening, that hopefully we've laid a really good clear groundwork for a logic of why some of these things are happening now at this time period. It's fun. It ends, I think, on a great action scene. There's some unbelievable pages. That panel that Chase sent, or that page that Chase sent, I'm like, oh man,
yeah.
I didn't want to tell him, hold that for me, don't sell it to Regie, because I don't want to get in trouble with my publisher. But I thought about it.
I'll be honest, brother. You've earned yourself some grace. Right? And you know what I'm talking about. You've earned yourself some grace. Whatever you want to do, I'm good with. I'm fine.
I appreciate it.
But the page that you sent over to me yesterday was really fantastic. It really was, and I'm glad that we seem to be getting ourselves back on track now that I'm back in the country and not traveling as much. I can focus a little bit better, and that's why we're able to start rolling these packages out. The Kickstarter packages to be able to fund the printing and all the other stuff. I literally have a package across the room that I haven't yet opened that arrived today. That is the next package that we're going to open up and make available on the website. But huge shout out to, I've seen a couple of comments here where people have picked up some individual issues. Shout out to those people that have already picked up package I, the manuscript that is now available on soldierpublishing.com. Doug and I and the rest of the team absolutely appreciate the support that has been shown for this project. The only way we are able to do it and keep it going is because you all are supporting the project, right? Like that's the only way that this happens. And that point is not missed on any of us. That is why the artists are making donations to be able to keep it going. They are not charging us. They are donating their time in some cases for like the Kickstarter packages. So they recognize it. Doug recognizes it. And there was another one that just came in. We absolutely appreciate all of the support. Doug, I think everybody knows where to find you, but like, do you want to shout out your social media just for that one person that hasn't met you, like the pastor? I don't think the pastor has met you yet. So let him know where to find you.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Pastor. And if you're on Instagram, I am at Doug.Bratton, BRATTON.9, the number 9.
There we go, Doug. It is always good to see you. It is always good to speak with you. Typically, we have our conversations around 6 a.m. As I'm having coffee. So we are at the other end of the spectrum, but I'll see you bright and early tomorrow morning, brother.
Take care.
Be well. All right. So I think our technical glitches have been resolved. And so I want to backtrack to bring on our second guest as a little bit of a setup. Again, I've spoken to a lot of cosplayers over the years. I've had exchanges with them to try to understand what it is that they do, but I realized that I never had a cosplayer on the show. And there is a member of our community that has gotten into cosplay. And so I wanted to invite her on to talk a little bit about cosplay and some of the things that she's working on, because she's actually involved with some pretty cool stuff. So we had some technical glitches earlier. We have hopefully resolved those issues now. Stephanie, welcome to the show. Nope. Yep. I don't think it's going to work. All right. So we have tried. We have made a valiant attempt to make the magic happen, but we remain challenged. It is all good. I want to thank each and every one of my guests for taking time out to try to join the show, to add something to the conversation. Each one of the guys that came on added something of value to this thing, and we'll have to have Stephanie back on because I have a feeling that she has some good stuff to share with us as well. So I want to thank all of you out there for hanging out with us a little bit. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you haven't yet subscribed, I want to encourage you to do that now. If you enjoyed this live stream, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button because, you know, it's good for the algorithm. It sends a good message to the YouTube gods that there is some good stuff that is happening here. And as a result of you engaging with the content, they share the content with more people. As I alluded to earlier, I released a video a few hours ago. It is on Spider-Gwen. There is a massive debate that is taking place on the Twitters right now about whether Spider-Gwen is trans. And I have a video in which I actually talk about the argument that is being made on Twitter. I will save you some time of going down in the Twitterverse. You can just watch the video. The details are there. Don't forget to comment. If you guys need to reach out to me, feel free to do so. And you can do it on Instagram at Regie Collects. Take care.
Straight off meditation, we was concaving until we had that eternal dialogue that created our dialect. Now we in distinct rooms with pure souls having them conversations. Synergy and combinations. You fly and we waiting. Indian style in the gold temple of greatness. When you follow the North Star, you coming for the education. This is my audio book. These rhymes are just the imagery. More like an audio graphic novel or a memoir about a young MC making timeless music with his mentor. I pray y'all grasp my letters. Nothing was meant to last forever.